Deathmoths. The Deathmoth is just like how it sounds, a flying nightmare fuel with a 1.5-meter wingspan, wings caked in coarse grey hair, and a syringe-shaped mouthpart that can punch straight through human skin, which is exactly how it eats. Deathmoths hunt for energy, and they have a long list in their menu. Humans, facelings, skin stealers, dullers. If it moves and has fluids, it's part of the continental breakfast. Now, the species is split into males and females, and the difference between the two is pretty wild. The females are the ones actually doing the killing, brute force operators that go completely still when hunting so their massive silhouettes blend into whatever's behind them, which does not work in the slightest because a female deathmoth is impossible to miss even when it's cosplaying as a lamp. The males, meanwhile, are basically flying golden retrievers, a fraction of the size, mostly passive, and completely obsessed with almond water. Pour some in a bottle and you can tame one to fight entities for you and fetch you specific items. Just don't run out, or your loyal companion will remember it's a giant venomous insect and turn on you. Females also secrete something called moth jelly after fertilization, originally meant to keep males submissive, but it turns out to be a solid protein source for wanderers that also improves your mood strangely enough. Deathmoths used to live in a place called the Hive, which is an entire moth civilization built into a humid megastructure. But they've really spread everywhere now. They've also been around for a long time, so much so that the first documented encounter was in 1891. Two agents on level 1 saw a giant moth thing and naively thought it was friendly. Well, it looked at them like they were continental breakfast, so no. The memory worm. There's an old rule in horror that if something makes you feel unusually good in a very bad place, it's probably about to kill you, and that's the whole plan of the memory worm. It's a colossal worm somewhere between 300 and 600 meters long, roughly the length of a subway train, with a girth of about 5 meters, which is roughly the same size as Yo Mama. Now, most of its body stays buried underground at any given moment, usually about 3/4 of its length, which it uses as leverage while chasing prey. And the way it hunts is genuinely rude. It emits a passive field that makes anyone nearby feel intense, unearned nostalgia and comfort. Wanderers get drawn in, start reminiscing about grandma's kitchen or whatever, and by the time they realize they're being lured, they're already staring down a mouth that opens into a spiraling vortex of 16-inch rotating teeth, which shred through prey like Chainsaw Man. The worm eats memories the way normal creatures eat food, which is why it also has an unreasonable craving for memory jars. That craving is so intense it will actually stop a hunt if it senses one nearby, which is why wanderers are advised to just carry memory jars around as insurance against getting eaten. The funny thing is, the worm is actually sentient enough to hold grudges, which is overkill at this point. I mean, you're already a giant telepathic evil sea worm, and now you're also mad at me? The Thing on level 7. Nobody actually knows how big the Thing on level 7 is because no one has ever seen its head or its tail. Estimates range from the size of a small moon to an entire planetary orbit, which is a pretty wide range. What we do know is that it lives in the endless ocean at the outer edge of level 7, a body of water that's suspiciously pure, empty, and covered in a permanent fog of what turns out to be microscopic bone dust. And that's because the Thing has literally eaten everything there is. The theory is that level 7 used to be full of marine life until this thing showed up and cleared the room, and then, out of sheer starvation, started digesting bones until it ground them down into powder that now hangs permanently in the atmosphere. It's shaped like an eel had a kid with a whale, and it drifts through the water as if there were currents pulling it. Even though level 7 doesn't have currents, it also doesn't react to pain. You can cut it, you can stab it, you can chunk pieces off of it, and it will not flinch, which has led researchers to two possible conclusions. Either it's so ancient and isolated it forgot what pain was, or it's already dead and every movement is being puppeted by the parasites eating it from the inside. The parasites are also, weirdly, edible. The Thing's flesh is one of the only reliable food sources on level 7, and eating it raw does absolutely nothing to you except make your breath smell like rotten fish and ammonia for several months. The Beast of level 5. The Beast of level 5 is what happens when the devil went to finishing school. The Beast of level 5 is a chimeric abomination, part human, octopus, deathmoth, standing about 6'2" with 2 pairs of arms, 1 set of tentacles, and 1 set of human hands tipped with steel claws. The whole thing is wrapped in a fashionable furred black suit that is, if you look closely, actually a pair of enormous moth wings folded up. He also has a dark blue octopus for a head and glowing violet eyes. This thing is the resident god of the Terror Hotel on level 5, where he has reality warping powers. He can bend hallways into loops, drop walls on you like a hydraulic press, or teleport corridors around to trap you, all while camouflaging into any surface. Now, when he wants a specific target, the process is elaborate. He picks a wanderer, cranks up the terror aura until they're dazed into a full mental breakdown, And then, right before they fully lose it, the symptoms vanish and he appears in person, usually in a column of purple flame or something equally theatrical. Then he offers you a deal, your soul in exchange for whatever you want the most. Safety, adventure, pre-MGK Megan Fox, YouTube views, and you get a few years to relish in whatever your choice is before your time runs out and the beast comes to collect. The upside is he is genuinely polite about the whole thing. He speaks Latin and your language interchangeably, seals every deal with a handshake, and always keeps his word. The downside is, if you refuse, he drops the gentleman act, grows to over 4 meters tall, sprouts compound moth eyes, and either sets you on fire, crushes you with the ceiling, or has tentacles rip you apart. Only 14 people in recorded history have ever survived one of his attacks. Wranglers. Wranglers are giant, hypnotic, burrowing snake worms. They live in cave levels, mostly level 669, level 52, and level 8, and their whole hunting strategy is to lure prey into a trance by twisting and contorting their bodies until you can't look away, and then at that point, they just eat you. Their skin is moist and translucent when they're young, so you can see the insides, and it gets grayer and more opaque as they age. Their eyes glow bright white to compensate for cave darkness, and their length ranges from 10 to 90 miles. Now, like the Deathmoths, the males behave completely differently from the females. Males have vaguely human faces with wide, unsettling smiles, rougher skin, and the will to eat literally anything they encounter, including you and yo mama. But females look more like actual worms, have pincers instead of a mouth, and mostly just leave wanderers alone because they'd rather graze on vegetation and rock minerals. Well, unless they're preggers. Because a pregnant female wrangler will absolutely eat you to feed her young. In 2019, the MEG found a dead male wrangler on level 8, and it was blocking off pathways over 2 cubic miles of the level. It had died mid-no-clip, which meant parts of the caves were literally clipping through its body, and the inside was so massive it was structured like its own tunnel, full of skeletons, ancient weapons, and unidentified objects it had swallowed over centuries. They had to burn through it with pyro oil just to reopen the exit. Seawalkers. Somewhere in level 7.8, a subsection of level 7 that's basically an endless ocean covered in stilt houses, there are giants between 40 and 70 meters tall that walk on top of the water using elongated crab-like legs. They're called Seawalkers, and they've solved a problem you didn't know giants had. Their skulls are extremely sensitive to sunlight, so they wear the stilt houses as shells. A Seawalker will find a suitable house on the sea, remove its old shell, bend beneath a new one, jam its head inside the building, and stand back up, wearing an entire home like a hermit crab wearing an Airbnb. They swap houses whenever the current one gets too worn or too transparent to actually block the sun. Their bodies are slimy grey, their eyes are blank white and empty, and their heads connect directly to their legs, which is not how anatomy is supposed to work. They travel in groups of at least 3, always following one member as a leader, and they share food with each other, which is a shockingly considerate arrangement given how they look. They also don't care about humans at all. They graze on dead coral and mostly ignore the wanderers sailing around beneath them. The only real risk is that a Seawalker might pick your specific stilt house as its next shell while you happen to be inside it, which is your problem, not theirs. They reproduce asexually. Every Seawalker can lay eggs, and the eggs hatch into fully self-sufficient baby Seawalkers that decide for themselves whether they want to follow their parent or go form a friend group with other juveniles, which is the healthiest child-rearing arrangement in the entire Backrooms. The Mangled. Everyone in the Backrooms thought the Mangled was a house-sized spider hiding in the fog of level 9 suburbs. Turns out that was wildly optimistic. The actual Mangled is so large it generates its own weather system. The fog that hangs over the outer neighborhoods of level 9 isn't fog. It's the atmospheric pressure system of a creature so massive that a single piece of it looks like a mile-tall black pillar reaching past the cloud layer. The house-sized spider stories were coming from wanderers who only saw a leg. When it moves, its footsteps register as thunder. When it walks past a village, the entire mountain range shakes for 2 minutes straight. And when it roars, the noise is disturbingly thousands of overlapping, distorted human speech. Because sitting at the top of this thing, apparently serving as its brain, is a writhing mass of merged human faces. Every human it eats gets absorbed into that mass, and every voice it collects gets added to the choir, which is what a MEG agent named Mike Hoffman found out the hard way. Hoffman had joined the MEG specifically to find his missing wife Clara, and while his team was recording the Mangled from a mountain observation post, he claimed he saw her face in the mass, screaming, calling out to him. That night he broke camp, sprinted down into the suburbs after her voice, and got snatched up by a tendril into the sky. Researchers went back and analyzed the audio afterward, and confirmed what he'd been hearing wasn't a hallucination. The Mangled had been using Clara's voice to lure him in. Effulgentines. From a distance, you might mistake an Effulgentine for a lamppost, but that's the last mistake any wanderer should make. Effulgentines live on level 144, a mud plain permanently soaked in rain, lightning, and mold, where the only way to travel is a network of narrow stone causeways. They're 20-meter-tall humanoids with elongated flat feet designed to stride across the mud without sinking, indigo fish scale skin caked in fungus, and elongated hands that appear to serve no purpose whatsoever. Sitting on top of a long flexible neck is a perfectly spherical head that is completely hollow inside, with the entire front missing. That opening produces an intense beam of light, which is how they look like lighthouses from far away. They spend most of their lives standing perfectly still, slowly rotating their heads in alternating 360-degree sweeps like actual working lighthouses, calling out to each other in a sound that's been described as whale song played through a foghorn. Very peaceful, all in all, until they decide to hunt you. For reasons nobody has figured out, Effulgentines occasionally shift from ambient searchlight mode to pure predator mode, chasing wanderers down along the causeways, snatching them off the paths or ambushing them. Sometimes they'll just wait outside a shelter for weeks, standing motionless until you eventually have to come out. When they catch you, they throw you into the glowing maw of their head, and nobody knows whether you get swallowed whole or just disintegrated by the light, because nobody who's been thrown into an Effulgentine's face has come back to file a report. The only good news is that after 2 or 3 kills, they tend to lose interest, so groups sometimes have survivors. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe. Also, let me know what you want to see in the next video. I read all of the comments. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.